Today we're going to be doing comprehensive maintenance on our DE filter system. This is going to start with preparations inside the swimming pool, backwashing the DE system inside this filter unit, and then taking apart this filter unit for cleaning of the elements and all of the associated parts of that unit, reassembling everything, testing everything out, and getting it back up and running. So let's get started. If you're coming out of winterization like I am, you would probably elect to use waste, and instead of sending all of the garbage on the bottom of your pool through your DE filter, you'd still have that last charge available to you, and you would dump all of the garbage outside the side of this multi-port valve, and then wait a couple of days maybe for everything on the bottom of the pool that's remaining to settle. At that point, you could use the remaining charge that's in this canister to remove the finer particulate matter that's in the pool by doing a regular vacuuming regimen to clean up the remaining debris that has settled to the bottom of the pool. Remember, though, that emphasis for the DE filter should be on water clarification and not the vacuuming of garbage out of the bottom of the pool. That should be reserved for waste. We're going to want the pool to be clean and empty of any debris before we do any service on the DE filter, because we don't want to suck anything back into this filter once it's all cleaned out. Now, from the bottom of the pool, clean it up, sweep it, hit it one more time, and that's what we're left with. Not too bad, you know, ready to get started here. At this point already, we also have to consider balancing the chemicals for pool use and making sure that we're not going to be getting any contaminants coming back in the pool now going forward, or this is all for nothing. Nasty. I've let this pump run on high for a good long while. I've lowered the speed only for the video. There seems to be multiple schools of thought on how to backwash these units, and one, which I do, is to run the backwash. This will cloud up, and once it stops clouding up, you shut off the backwash, right? You switch over to rinse, and you run rinse until this clouds up and it becomes clear. You shut it off, you backwash again. You repeat the cycle over and over until this never clouds up again, and then that would be sufficient. You read a lot on the internet, unfortunately, that you should run backwash a full 2 minutes and then shut it off, and then run rinse a full minute, and then repeat this process several times. I think that's an incredible waste of water. I also don't think it's effective because it requires agitation to do this job. But if I don't do it in this movie, people are going to say that the reason why my backwash was insufficient when I opened this up was because I didn't do that. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to use my method, which I find to be more effective. I'm going to use the 1 minute, 2 minute method, and we're going to see how that works. What it's going to do is waste an incredible amount of water and be less effective than doing like 20 iterations of back and forth, as opposed to just like 2 iterations before my pool water gets too low. However, point out for the record that 2 minute, 1 minute is entirely unnecessary, in my opinion. And I'm going to point this out right now. This is very important. We must check with your local laws, city laws, to see how you're supposed to properly dispose of used DE. I know exactly what the laws are in my area. I don't know what the laws are in your area. And I'm not going to tell you what the laws are in your area. So look them up before you do this procedure. And so we begin. I'll be speeding this up so we don't have to watch all of this, right? Now move it over to rinse. 14 seconds. Put it back to backwash. Eleven, 12 seconds after starts. Finally, again, I move it to rinse. I'm going to set it to backwash one last time. And here's what I want to know. Given all that I've done, I just want to see if this is going to cloud up at all when I turn the pump on. because my preference is to run it on backwash for like 20 seconds till this clears up, and then rinse till it clears up, and then backwash, and then rinse, and backwash, and then rinse. I don't want to invalidate the test that I've done by opening this up and using my method. I want to use this method, but I'm just going to allow this to run backwash and just see if it clouds. So it's still clouding up. Again, I think it's the agitation between the backwash and the rinse that's key. Not letting it sit in any one position for 2 minutes. But I'm going to go along with this and see what we get as a result. My personal preference obviously would be backwash until this is no longer cloudy, and then rinse till it's no longer cloudy, and then keep doing that over and over until there's no cloudiness at all. Not only is that method more effective for the backwash, but it might save you hundreds of gallons of water compared to the method I've used today. And with that, we've covered the preparation inside the swimming pool, and now we've covered the backwashing of the DE filter, and now we're going to actually get into the cleaning of the DE filter elements themselves. So let's get started. Like all of my videos, when I work on the pool, we're going to shut that power, because ain't nothing worth dying over. There, I said it. Our next order of business, we're going to open this top air valve. There's a dump cap on the bottom of the unit. This will have to be unscrewed. If you've never unscrewed this before, you will probably need a tool like an adjustable wrench to open this up. If you do regular maintenance, you probably don't. You just go like that. If you've opened that top valve, you can hear the air as the water gushes out, empties relatively quickly. Wait for that to fully empty. With the water drained and the pressure released from the canister, be using a 9/16 socket. This is my pool socket, all nice and rusty. To open up this nut right here, we'll release the tension on this band that holds the top cover on. Eventually you could hand turn it, as you see me doing. Don't lose any of these pieces, don't let them fall. This is a weird looking screw. You can see, as I take it off, I'll show you. We have this weird screw, looks like brass, right? This washer and this spring, right? And those are the 3 parts. Do not lose them, put them somewhere safe. With those removed, there's nothing holding this thread work into the band. You can see the band separates. When you pull the band away from the unit, it'll come off. You need just a little bit of work, and it can be put off to the side. With that band removed, there's nothing left holding on the cover except one very large rubber O-ring that's in here. So the cover can be removed just like that. See, mine came off with very little fuss. So I'm now going to put this cover in a safe place. I don't want it to get damaged. This will be cleaned separately. With that, we get a first look at the DE filter elements. The method that I would have used would have done a much better job at removing more of the matter from these elements using a lot less water. Be that as it may, for the areas where it did remove debris, right? They still need work. They still need to be cleaned and inspected. There's still a maintenance service that needs to be done on them. And there is nothing complicated about this job. It's easy. You do it methodically. You take your time. We'll get it done, put it back together, and everything will be just fine. I'll point out, very important on the manifold are 2 indications that say lift here. These are the lifting points for the manifold that we will be using. It's also good to know before we remove this, that this pipe right here, we see this pipe coming down. There is a rubber O-ring in here. This is how this entire manifold connects to the unit, right? There's another pipe on the bottom, but it is not physically connected to the unit. This is the support and connection right here that we're going to be lifting off of to release the entire filtration system from this container. So with that, I'll begin. I grab from the 2 lifting points, and as I lift up, I I turn it left and right because it is a rubber gasket, and it lifts right up and off the unit. I'll also remove this rubber O-ring. This O-ring will be inspected. If it's still good, it will be lubricated and reused. If not, it will be replaced. Having removed the filter, I lay it down gently on the ground to show the bottom. And on the bottom, there is a piece of PVC that's cut in a special manner. We can see that. And the cutout portion points towards the hole for which this was connected to the container, right? And this may have been on some units glued in, right? Because there is a glue on here. It is not glued in on mine, or not glued in anymore. I simply remove it on mine, right? And I just, using these marks, place it right back in wherever it goes. I don't know if that's entirely correct. It has never caused me an issue, but I find it easier to work with and seat it upright properly and access this bolt when I do that. So I'm just going to point that out. And when it comes time, you know, at the end, when I'm reconnecting it, I just snap that back into place. Another look from the bottom of the unit now, what is impacted between these elements even after the backwash of the unit. We could see just unbelievable amounts of debris. Again, especially where I said they are in close proximity with each other. And this is why a backwash is limited in its effectiveness. My first order of business will simply be to flush out this container. We could see a bunch of sand in the bottom. It's really easy with the hose, right out the bottom drain. There we go, everything is nice and clean in there. Wash out the inside of this cover right quick. I'll pay extra attention to the O-ring mating surfaces later. That'll be done before the unit's put back together. So what I do on the filters is I give it sort of a pre-wash with the hose before I disconnect them all. I do wash them separately, of course, as I'm going to take it apart, but this is sort of like a pre-rinse. And because I don't want to get DE all over me, I switch to shower so it doesn't sort of splash back up on me. You can see all of it separating. You can see that right there already made a big difference on the bottom. It pushed out a lot of that impacted stuff. Having carefully flipped the unit over, I repeat the process of cleaning it with the hose on shower. Now we take this unit apart to work on. We're just dealing with dirty, not disgusting. This top nut on the manifold is 1/2 inch. You'll have to hold or secure the bottom bolt in order to twist this, or it'll just spin freely. Once it gets started, you can just loosen it by hand, I found. Holding the bottom. There is a nut and a washer. The bolt runs the length of the entire manifold. So I flip it back over, like so, so that it is upside down. Pull that bolt out, and then put the washer and the nut back on here so it doesn't get lost. That's it, really easy. Having done that, this bottom spacer will lift right off the unit. Just sort of give it a little wiggle, and it's off. We could just put this out of the way. We'll wash this and clean it. We're done. We could see now, with the spacer removed, there's nothing holding in the elements. All of the elements are the same size except for one. There is an area on the manifold that tells you which one that is, so you don't have to worry. You could just remove them all without any concern. They pop right out, a little wiggle, and they're out. And there we go. In 2 minutes, the entire filter, elements, and manifold has been broken down for cleaning. I'm going to wash these associated parts right quick. Each part is inspected as it is washed for damage or excessive wear, replaced if necessary. Finally, after cleaning, I like to level the manifold to some extent and fill it up with water and make sure that it holds water so that the seams between the two plastic pieces that make it up are still watertight. There's not any leaks. So I let that sit there for 5 to 10 minutes and see that the lowest point still stays perfectly filled. Other than that, you can see that all of these associated parts and pieces are now perfectly cleaned and ready for installation. I do notice that the black that is formed inside the manifold tells me that the O-ring is on the way out. I'm going to need to put in a replacement O-ring. I'm also going to need to clean up this mating surface and the one inside the canister. We can see that the rubber is already broken down. It's like a tar. We can see all that black residue, so it'll have to be replaced, cleaned up, and it'll be as good as new. Each filter is individually washed and then inspected to ensure that the fiberglass is not ripped in any place. If you've ever had a situation where DE is appearing in your swimming pool, it's generally because fiberglass has ripped in one of these elements. So I'm going to start on this, and I'm going to repeat this process over and over again. There's a couple things to know about these. Number one, they're made of crap, right? They're not high quality, not by any stretch of the imagination. Number two, we're looking for ruptures in the fiberglass element. If you have a hole in the fiberglass, I'm not going to recommend that you repair it. Number three, what we're looking for is any cracks in the plastic substructure, this frame that holds the fiberglass shape. I have an example right here. We can see that it's broken up here, but it's not, this one particularly is not going to cause any problems, right? There are some breaks that are better than others. We can see this is an example of a break that's not going to cause an issue. But when there's significant breakage, it'll cause uneven pressure on these, and that's generally where you get a tear. I'm not seeing a problem on this one. We're also looking for anything that's unraveling as far as the stitching where the fiberglass connects over here. As I look through this, and make sure you wash under the stitching as well. As I look at this particular one, I see no cause for alarm. Everything appears fine. It passes inspection, right? Because if you do this quick wash and it fails inspection, there's no need to keep working on it. It's going to have to go on a list of replacement items for your unit. Here's another one where the top portion had cracked because these are made of crap. And what I've done is I put a little water in here to blow this up ever so slightly like a balloon and pushed it all those plastic pieces to the bottom and out of the way in between these plastic pieces so it won't cut into the fiberglass. And if it does cause an issue next year, then it'll have to be replaced. These might be washed and cleaned now, but we're not out of the woods because we have another problem, and I'm going to demonstrate what this problem is. Please redirect your attention to part 2 of this video. Thank you.